mastermind group, I'd like to be as efficient as possible. I want to start off with a real simple story so you all can understand what I'm going through, what I'm doing, what my mission is. Basically, this past summer, I had gone on a spiritual retreat in Montana. And for those of you that know my family, my brother Mike, who was with me in prepaid league, he still is. He has since moved on to a personal development career. Matter of fact, this weekend he's having a big mastermind event in Las Vegas with Jim Rohn, Bill Bailey, and a couple other real big speakers, and it's just phenomenal. I went to his last year. But at any rate, last year we went on a spiritual retreat. Jim Rohn was there, William Bailey, a couple other people that I didn't know. It was in Montana, stayed in a beautiful cabin. Since about a year and a half ago, Mr. Bailey, as a lot of you know, has a coaching course that I have taken since then and has changed a lot of my philosophies, changed my life, and redirected things for me. And I'm not here to promote his coaching course. I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and he would call my house directly and say, "When are you going to join this course, Paul?" The reason he was pushing me is he saw something in me and he wanted me to take this course. Well, I'm like most people. It's easier sometimes to not do something than to step ahead and do it. So we go on this trip in Montana, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I'll never forget one night sitting in a cabin with Jim Rohn, Jerry Brassfield, and William Bailey. I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn. I've seen him speak before. They're always about 45 yards away up on the stage. I was sitting next to him. It was real neat. And listening to Jim and Bill and Jerry Brassfield talk about the millions of dollars they made in the 60s and how they built other companies. You ever get like a real good poker hand and you don't want to smile? Or like when you're a kid and you hit a home run, you don't want to look too excited, you got to be cool. I was like that the whole time. Just wonderful experience. Long story short, that trip was about 4 days, and my father was there, and it was right around when he was about to retire, so-called retire. And so it was a good time for all the boys to get together and head out to Montana. Mr. Bailey asked me again. He goes, "Now, Paul, I don't want to push you. I see so much in you. I want you to consider taking my course because I can break it down for you step by step of what made me who I am." I said, "All right, I'll call you. I'll talk to you about it." And then what had happened was we went to pay our bill, and Mr. Bailey paid for our cabin. See, so now I felt guilty, So I signed up for his course. I went into his course kicking and screaming. I'm just like you. I feel busy. I get busy. I've got a personal life just like you. I'm trying to do what I can do in prepaid legal the best I can. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. So I took his course, and it's probably one of the best decisions I made. To take a course like that is not an inexpensive thing to do, but you got to keep in mind you're investing in yourself. And you never want to be cheap with yourself because your life is too short, and you don't want to fool around with the one chance you got. So whatever you can do to improve yourself, I suggest you do it. A couple months later, we had the retirement party for my father. Some of you remember when that was, and that really wasn't a retirement party. What it was a way of showing our respect. Because, see, you really don't retire in our type of business. Why would you? We get paid for bringing people to another level. We get paid for changing people's lives. And what we do as an excuse, we hook up with a company called Prepaid Legal. We use that as a vehicle because they have a good concept and they pay us a whole bunch of money. That's really what we do. So why would you retire anyways? But it was a big respect thing. I know a lot of you have heard the story I'm about to tell. The next day, Mr. Bailey had a taping to do for a CD. I knew he had the afternoon to himself, so I went and I visited with him. I said, "Mr. Bailey, do you mind if I come and spend a couple hours with you?" He said, "Young man, you come and spend a couple hours with me. You bring something to write with, too." I spent a long time with him, about 3 hours in his hotel room, and you cherish those moments when you get to talk to somebody at that level and learn the things that they've learned, especially when they have an interest in you. What he did, he started asking me about prepaid legal and how I'm doing. And I'm pretty proud about what I've done in prepaid. My numbers are pretty good, and I told him my exact numbers. Now, it's the first time I've ever done that, except when I'm talking to my parents. I'm talking to a man who's made $64, $65 million in a month. I can't mistake any numbers. Plus, he'd probably know if I was making them up, too, right? So I told him what I was doing, and I felt pretty proud about it. And he walked across the room, had a cigar in his mouth, and he turned around and he said, "You mind if I ask you a personal question?" I said, "Mr. Bell, you can ask me anything you want." And he said, "What exactly is your problem?" And nobody had ever talked to me that way before. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You know exactly what I mean." He goes, "Let me tell you something. You're no different than anybody else." He said, you are working off 10% of your talent, and you're walking around here making $10,000 a month like you've arrived somewhere. He said, why don't you do this? Why don't you think in this manner? If you can do that once, why don't you do that 9 more times, add another comma to your income, and why don't you influence thousands of people instead of a couple hundred, or are you selfish-minded? So you could see I was being shot up. And I'll tell you what happened to me. It really induced in me that I could be something bigger than I am. I left that hotel and I went to my brother Mike's house in Canton, and he had this DVD called Growth into Greatness. He took the old films from 1968. I know a lot of you have seen them. Some of you have looked at it on the website we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I got them from Mikey's house, and I watched Mr. Bailey speak to his group in 1968. And what I did, I spent 3 days totally consumed in his delivery and what his message was and his philosophy. It changed my life. It really did. I mean, my life has been changed with this company, but it really moved me to another level. I've talked to him about that recently because I appreciate when people do those things for me. I said, Mr. Bailey, this is what this has done for me. And he said, let me tell you why you were so moved, is because you spending those 3 days on those tapes, which I've never done before. He said, it not only reached you, it reached your subconscious. And that's what changed you and started you creating habits. And that's when he got me on this kick on habits. Habits are potent. Whether they're good or bad, they're hard to break. So if we can make them good, we'd probably turn out pretty good, wouldn't we? We're going to cover all these things.